Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And let me, in the first place, thank all of the organizers and the sponsors of the 80th forum held in Verona and giving me the possibility of telling to you and sharing with you what happens within the Eurasian integration field, and to exchange views and opinion as to which steps to take next. Let me once again greet Antonio Fallico and praise him for organizing year after year this meeting and allowing us to interact. As Professor Fallico said, this is no time to have a rhetoric approach. So my contribution will be based on what seems to be entailed by this forum, Knowing Eurasia. So I'll tell you what we are doing. It was already said that the world economy as a whole and all of the other countries living within the Euro-Asian Union are not living happy times. There are lots of geopolitical aspects that affect the situation. The trade exchanges were curtailed by 1/3, and this is also affecting our mutual trade relations within the Union. And this is affecting them badly by almost 1/4. As an integration body, we should experience a number of challenges because the crises are obvious phenomena, and all of the protectionist aims tend to prevail in the business sphere, but also within state body or state entities as well. So integration stands as a key, allowing for long-term strategic plans, allowing the development of our economies and the diversification of the same economies, and to allow them to be sustained. So let's see what was done ever since last year. Last year we had some agreements within the Euro-Asian Union that were signed but not yet implemented. Now I'll tell you what happened after the signature, so especially within the service market. As we've heard, we belong to the step and the situation of the creation of a common service market, and we also believe that there is a multinational regime, there is a prohibition of establishing limits, and the license that was given to a state body has to be acknowledged by all of the other members of the Union. We have, as was said by the board of the presidents of member states, the support to a number of sectors, trade sectors, building sectors, architectural sectors, and there are altogether 43 sectors accounting for more than half of the services involving our countries are now experiencing the rules I mentioned before, which is very important. And on October the 16th, so very recently, the Supreme Economic Council of the Union decided to start preparing the liberalization plans to allow the single market to have 21 further sectors involved. So we have to harmonize the legislation, we have to harmonize the implementation and application rules. We couldn't just allow everyone to step into the common market, but we decided at the highest levels to create common markets within these sectors. So now practical hands-down and hands-on work is to be conducted. Now, as far as the financial sector is concerned, and with this respect I am reporting on behalf of the Commission, we do realize that in order to set up a single financial market, we've seen that on the basis of the market and of the agreement, this should take place and should be completed by 2025. But we need two fundamental things. We have to have a harmonized legislation across the entire area, and there is to be administrative cooperation, meaning that on a daily basis and on a concrete basis, regulators have to agree even as far as confidential issues. This is why on December the last we signed, and as a Commission we are waiting for the last diplomatic action that will sanction the exchange of information, even confidential ones, especially between governments and the central banks. And it's going to be envisaged that whatever the information on a regular basis, but also on the request of one of the regulators, is going to be acknowledged and passed on to the other regulators. And this is something that happens for the first time ever. It has no precedence. So we are agreed that this agreement was to be adopted by all of the states. And the second fundamental component is aiming at the activities in the financial markets. This activity establishes what degree of harmonization should there be. We know that this is obviously entailing terminology and the preparation of common approaches as to the surveillance of participants within this financial market. All this was approved by the college and by the board, and it is now waiting for the approval of the member states. Another important thing which is now being accomplished is very important, something very important for some of the sectors at state level, is the agreement of harmonization of duties and levies on alcohol products and tobacco products. We are a custom union, and we do not apply any tariff measures. We don't have custom agents. So the sensitivity to the training to prices is very high because markets are large. And in between Kazakhstan and Russia, there are some 7,000 kilometers of borders. And it seems that what is less expensive in Kazakhstan will probably reach Russia. And obviously in that market there isn't a trace of what's been regulated by the state. And the duties levied tend to be accounting for some 50% of the final prices. It's very important to have an approach which is extremely identical, which is exactly what we're trying to do. We have prepared 2 harmonization agreements for both tobacco and alcohol products, spirits. And by the end of the year, we will have to adopt this decision. Within the general framework, and as far as the general tendency is concerned, allowing for a general harmonization between countries, allowing for the provision of information and exchange of information and collaboration at fiscal level, we've prepared the protocol of an exchange of information between fiscal bodies, including all kinds of revenues and all kinds of goods, which do have the legal and physical figures of the situation in Italy, but also abroad. So all of the complete information for all of the subjects. We want to move well as far as the liberalization goes. We here refer to the currency relations. We've devised for the interstate regulatory meetings, and in conformity with all this, we have abolished almost all sorts of currency checks at national level, notwithstanding the fact that the approaches were very much different. In the first place, from internally of this union. There aren't that many competitors after all, that's true. But we have to try and understand how much and of what kind what type should this system be. So we are to enhance the interparliamentary sector, and we wanted to move ahead towards a legislative sector. And let's hope that by the end of the year we will have an agreement signed, and let's hope that next year this is going to be solved as a problem. Then, amongst other initiatives, we are to mention the positive integrated attitude of the currency market and those banks having a national license and at the same time wanting to participate into the trades, the different bourses and the different trades So this is a concrete example of integration from the currency point of view. Now, with respect to 2013, let's say that in the year 2014, the volume of the currency exchanges went up by and increased by 11%. The Kazakhs, the Belarusians banks are very much affected by what happens within the Russian or Moscow Stock Exchange. Let me also say, and I will try and save time, I'll cut short, I'd like to sort of make some reasonings having to do with the interaction that we have with the European partners, especially the Italian ones. So let me say that I myself also believe that it's extremely important to get started with this dialogue. Everyone knows that the European Commission has a number of functions and that the countries transferred these competences on a voluntary basis. So we can talk as much as we want about the need to develop commercial trade relations in the different councils, and everyone understands that the commerce is also stopped by non-tariff and tariff barriers. So I believe that we are either to stop and just do something as far as DASI is concerned. DASI is an important aspect, and as far as the phytosanitary or plant sanitary agreements, this is not falling within the competence of supranational powers. And amongst the two commissions, there is going to be no possibility of allowing the growth of some trade activities. The barriers will never disappear. Now, we well know that the European Union has gone through exactly the same things. We know that the Union is building up a bank union, which is what we intend to do by 25-25. You intend to do it, as you said, much earlier. But this is an agreement whereby there are no ideologies, no policies, and we have to exchange experiences without trying to inventing the wheel. This is why the Euro-Asian Economic Union, I believe, today stands as a reality, which is definitely not changing the situation. We are a legal subject, an international subject, and our activity is an evidence of this. So we should collaborate one with another. Now, going back to Marco Polo, of which mention was made earlier on, the trip from Europe to Venice towards China, from Venice towards China, was made possible because the space he traveled was regulated by common rules. It was part of the large Mughal empire, so he had the permission of going and coming. Now, why am I saying this? Because the cooperation between East and West, between North and South, without fitting in the Euro-Asian space and the Economic Euro Union, it will hardly be possible. Or at least it's going to be not much effective. So this is why I believe that we should try and increase our cooperation amongst countries, and especially this is why we should start our cooperation amongst supranational bodies, at least at the technical level of experts. So let me conclude with a saying that the road, the 1,000-mile road starts if you take a first step towards that road. And now time has come to take that step. Many thanks.